My name's Nick Hagen. I'm one of the directors of Nuestar, and today I want to explain about the business, what Nuestar actually does as a business, and my role within that business, which is really around two key areas. It's around strategy and it's around high performance coaching. Both those are very much integrated. You've got to have a strategy and you've got to be able to execute that strategy essentially, and that's what my role is, to drive and to push that agenda. So what I want to talk about really is the Nuestar model, about how you create and build wealth, and then the principles of building wealth. So essentially my role is to spend 80% of my time on the inside game, which is psychology, the psychology of building wealth, and then 20% is the mechanics. That's your economic engine. So that's my business partner, Michael Wilkins, will concentrate and spend time in that area of mechanics and how that works. So really, my role is to look at cognitive intelligence, about performance. It's about looking at emotional intelligence in terms of flexibility, and also intrapersonal, which is how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, and how you build that team around you. And also then the economic engine. So it's about the foundation. You've got to have your foundations, you've got to have those principles in place before you can then really build and accelerate your wealth. Then part of that is really the transition of income into compound equity, which is a key metric. It's also your top line metric in terms of building and creating wealth. Tax efficiency, it's really critical. What's your purchasing entity going to look like, so you can create tax efficiencies in either your own personal name, in a discretionary trust, in a self-managed super fund, or in a corporate proprietary limited company. And an area that I really want to focus on is creating passive income. It's not trading your time for money. Trading your time for money is really hard work. It's working for an hour and getting paid for an hour. You don't want to you want to break that cycle, and this strategy is around breaking that cycle essentially for corporates and people that are on payroll. So it's that transition of income into these three metrics: compounding, tax efficiency, and passive income. How you do that is these principles of building your team. You've got to build your team around a good broker, an accountant, having a property strategist, having someone that is able to get out there and teach you about how to get your knowledge and experience about how to buy property. Compound and leveraging, being able to leverage Australian property market is very good for growth. It's about using that equity into your next possible purchase, so you can get from 1 to 3 to 5 to 7 properties. Wholesale, which is really being able to, and Michael will talk about that, wholesale is that mechanics. We come back to the principle of the mechanics of property. It's that 20%. Being able to get in early, purchasing a property in a capital city, in a different capital city, in a different product, is really gives you that balance and that into the market early, which is what Nuestar is really good at. Tax efficiency, we spoke about that. Cash flow, you need cash flow to make sure that you've got the right return on investment, the right yield on that product. Supply and demand, that really drives the differential of being able to get capital growth. So capital growth happens when you've got more demand than supply in the market. And then research. Research is really important to understand those corridors that are gentrifying. It's understanding where the private and public infrastructure spend is happening in a capital city and around those particular key infrastructure projects. So that's really around principle. It's around converting income, not converting your income into compound equity, tax efficiency, and having passive income, and really understanding that you must have your foundations in place. So it's 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. And I spend my time as my role in Nuestar is that 80% psychology. We've just spoken about strategy. Now we're going to talk about high performance coaching. As a cognitive psychologist, my role within Nuestar is around performance coaching of the client from where they are today, where they need to be tomorrow. And really, It's about that psychology of being able to get a well-formed outcome from them, from where they are, and get them to change their emotions, which drives their thinking, which drives their performance, period. Now, part of that process is I can talk you through around what high performance is. That is really critical about how high performers operate and how they are able to get and accelerate their results. So part of that high performance is I want to just talk through logical levels. So as we chunk up, if we have a look at environment, you cannot change the environment that you're in. You cannot change the desk or the boardroom that you're currently performing in. What you can do, though, in terms of you chunking up into behaviour, behaviour drives performance. So that's really being able to transcend from environment to include behaviour. Once you've got behaviour, then you look at capability. So you're transcending from behaviour into capability. Capability looks at your self-confidence and your skills. We want to have making sure that your skills and your self-confidence is commensurate. You can't have your skills higher than your self-confidence. You don't want to go to a dentist who's got very good self-confidence, but below skill level. Then you transcend and include that to belief. So belief will be able to enable you, but it also can abstain you. It's a generalization having a belief. So it's not good enough just to have belief. You've got to move beyond that, because belief, you can have a limiting belief. So what we wanted to try and do is push further into being able to transcend that into values. Values are really critical. It's really where your belief system actually sits. So values is, what you as an individual you live by. You transcend your values into identity. What is your purpose? Who are you? That's really critical to be able to identify who you are as an individual. So what we've done is just chunked up in terms of logical levels. Now, in high performance, what we want to do is you'd be able to zoom out like we just have done, but you want to be able to zoom in, right? So high performers, they understand who they are. They have a very clear understanding of who they are. They understand their values. They have an innate belief in themselves. In terms of their capability, they understand their self-confidence, but they also understand those thousands and thousands of hours of repetition, that mind to muscle to pattern, being able to do that. It's called muscle memory. So they're very good at muscle memory, and then they're able to go into performance. So what we want to try and do, and what performance, high-performing athletes, for example, they're able to shift their thinking straight into the environment. So they lose their mind, come to their senses. So they get into what is called flow or peak performance, or they get into the zone. So that's the environment. That's where high performance actually happens. The athlete goes in there. They're not thinking anymore about what they're doing. They're just doing. And that comes from each of these logical levels. High-performing individuals, high-performing investors, business people, entertainers, they all have two critical principles: mental positioning and huge work ethic. So they're two criteria that high performers have. Then we move across to what I call is the self-actualization model. And this is really, this is around having performance on one axis and having meaning on the other axis. So with performance, that's around flatlining cognitive intelligence. It's not good enough just to have performance without meaning. You've got to have meaning, which drives performance. So what we want to try and do is being able to, what we call being able to self-actualize. So you want to have high performance, and you also want to have high meaning. So if you just have high performance, right, what you have as an athlete, you have burnout, or you have in a corporate world, it's called being a workaholic. If you have high meaning with low performance, you're basically living in fluffland. That's not where you want to spend your time. What we want to be able to do in high performance, and that's in Nuestar, what I do is hold accountable our clients to have that flexibility of emotional intelligence. That's being able to then step into the zone, step into peak performance, step into where they've been able to operate and do exceptionally well at making decisions, at being able to regulate their emotions, being able to regulate their outcome and their performance. So emotional intelligence is very, very critical in the high performance space. And as a cognitive psychologist and neurosemantic coach, it's really around getting a well-formed outcome, being able to ground exactly where they are now in terms of subject, looking at the context of when are they going to do it, where are they going to do it, who are they going to do it with, and then into process. What do you need to do to get what you want? How are you going to monitor that? Have you got a strategy? Have you got a plan? How do you need external people to help you or internal people, internal reference? It's around then being able to use quality checks. It's around, is this compelling to be able to do what you're not? Is there anything stopping you? Right? So that's really a high performance, it's a high performance conversation. It's called a well-formed outcome. So that's really around high performance, and it's where I spend most of my time in terms of coming into Nuestar. You will have a discovery session, which a lot of this information will come out into the discovery session. Where are you up to now? And that discovery session generally takes about 30 minutes, and that's the introduction into Nuestar. Then what happens is I'll also do 6 monthly reviews with clients, and it's really about extracting where they are today, how they're tracking, what their performance is, how the continuum on their performance, and is there anything stopping them? Is there any obstacles? Is there any obstructions in the way? So that's really encapsulates both strategy, what I spoke about, and high performance, which is driving the individual, making sure that their emotions drive their thinking, which drives ultimately their performance. Now, just in terms of reviewing the Nuestar business model, we went through initially strategy, then we transitioned that into high performance coaching, and now the results of both strategy and high performance coaching, we're going to look at the results and basically the case study of if you get step 1 right, which is strategy, and step 2 right, which is high performance coaching, what we do now is look at the results. So essentially, this is my own personal case study over 10 years. So where I started 10 years ago and where I'm up to now. What I've done is worked with Michael Wilkins, who looks at the property acquisition, and what I've done is essentially in terms of strategy and execution, I've purchased off the plan property in all capital cities in Australia across 4 different product lines, which is apartments, townhouses, land and house packages, and also industrial. So what this results look like is after that 10-year plan and execution is the accumulation of 35 properties over that period of time. So if we look at the results of what that looks like, and this is really critical because it just shows you over 10 years that property portfolio now has a total value of $34 million worth of property. It's got debt of $18.6 million and also total equity in that 10 years of $15.5 million. Now that's the accumulation of those 35 properties and the results in the Australian property market. Now here's the critical piece, is that the power of Australian property is that if you do nothing with that 34 million and the property grows at 7.2%, which is the average capital growth of property, that 34 million becomes 64 million. And then your debt reduces over that period of time down to 15 million. The total equity of 15.5 million becomes 49 million in 10 years. That is not trading your time for money. That is compounding equity, it's using tax efficiency, and it's also using passively being able to generate from 15.5 to 49, which is just over $3 million a year in compounding. That's that top metric that we spoke about in the strategy. So that's the results of how Nuestar can really shift the gears in terms of your wealth creation over a 10-year period. That's the problem. That's the probability of having a good strategy, being able to execute that plan, understand the steps and stages of building that, and that's essentially your results.